Shapes are everywhere, and one thing that you really need to develop as a designer is a sense of seeing the shapes in objects and graphics and anything that is designed around you. Once you start to see the shapes, then it will start to make sense how you can use shapes in your own design. So the first thing that we want to do is go ahead and look at some things and see how shape is in there, because even though shape is everywhere, we don't always recognize it all the time. We don't always see that there is a shape to this object or to this graphic or to this thing. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to look at some examples of where shapes are. And because it's always here with us, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start by looking here at this van that hangs behind me all the time. If you've been watching for a while, you know that I'm a huge fan of Volkswagen vans. I have them all over the place. My wife and I run the Yellow Van Travels blog, and it's just such an iconic vehicle that it really speaks to, I think, a lot of people. So let's go ahead and let's look at what the shapes are inside of this van. The first shape that you'll probably recognize right away is the circle. So the wheels are made up out of circles, and they're actually ellipses because they're not quite completely round, and it's actually several ellipses stacked inside of each other. So you can see there's different ellipses going through here. And then the next shape that you'll probably notice is the rounded rectangle. And it's easiest to see here in this window. But what you'll find is that when you start seeing shapes, rounded rectangles are everywhere. In fact, the entire van is really a rounded rectangle, and each of the bumpers are rounded rectangles as well. The windows, rounded rectangle was famously Steve Jobs' favorite shape because he thought it was the most pleasing. At least that's what the rumors say. And you notice this when you start to look at like Apple products, because you'll find that every Apple product, its shape is actually a rounded rectangle. And so it's just like every single thing, rounded rectangle. And so when we are designing, we use rounded rectangles actually a lot because they're just a great shape to work with. So you can see that there's just shapes that make up this object, right? And it's not that many shapes. Circles, rounded rectangles, there's kind of a triangular shape that makes up this door handle, but there's just not that many shapes that you even need for a design like something like this van. We've got kind of a half circle here in the surfboard, rectangles holding the surfboard up. That's kind of the shape breakdown that goes into something like this van. Now let's go ahead and let's look at a map that I picked up on recent travel. We'll look at some of the iconography that's involved in that in the map design and how shape is used there. Okay, so here's the map that I got. And I got this at the Interstate State Park in Minnesota. So you can kind of see this here. And obviously the map itself is a rectangle, which is kind of the usual shape for a map. And then there are lots of shapes within this map. Now obviously the Minnesota is actually an irregular shape based on kind of natural features and political boundaries. But then you can see we've got a rounded rectangle that goes around that contains this information, and then another rounded rectangle inside of that that contains a smaller portion of information. There's then a rectangle that makes up a line or a rule right here. And then when we get into the icons, we see this, and this is a diamond shape, but it's actually a rounded square turned on its side, right? And then there's a little square down here, and then kind of this rectangular but a little bit irregular shape right there to make that exclamation point. All right, let's keep going down here. Of course, there are circles for the bullet points. And you might not even think about that, but the way bullet points look matter and convey something a little bit different depending on what you do with them. So you make a choice based on how that's going to look. Then we have the continuing. Now, of course, we know repetition as one of the design principles from the first class. And so we're using the same rounded square diamond shape here. And then we have a circle with little tiny rectangles around it that make up this clock, and then triangular rounded shapes and a circle in the middle. The last icon on this page, we can see here, continues with the theme of the rounded square on its side as a diamond, and then a circle and a rounded rectangle that comes off the bottom to form the magnifying glass. So then we open this up, we see more rounded rectangles throughout. They contain the information, more circles. So we're seeing the same things over and over. And then as we get here into some more icons, we see that we've now switched. We're now using a rounded square as a square instead of a diamond. And you can see when you start making a person icon like this, you start to get different shapes going on, but there's circles, and then the rest of these shapes are actually rounded rectangles stacked and merged to create this person. So there's a lot of different things. This campground one is a triangle. We haven't seen a lot of triangles so far, but this is a triangle with another triangle inside it, a rectangle along the bottom. And then you get these kind of irregular shapes for fire. These curves are actually, they can be made out of circles or pieces of circles. And then we've got rectangles that are skewed, making the log. Really, there's just shape everywhere when you start to look for it. And then these icons, there's more icons on the map, which are rounded squares. And I like this one because I actually had to make a new icon for this one because it's a pothole. I don't know if potholes are marked on other maps, but potholes are a geographic feature in this park, naturally formed by glacial water. And this is just a circle with a triangle through it. So they had to come up with something kind of abstract to represent it, but they just used two simple shapes, which made it simple for people to understand. So you can see that there is shape everywhere. Everywhere we look, we start to see shapes. And so we're going to go ahead and in the next video, we'll go over some programs that you can use in order to make shapes, and then we'll be moving on from there. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope that you've learned something useful here. This video is part of an entire course where you can learn the project from beginning to end that I've created over on Skillshare. Skillshare is an online community where teachers share their skills with students so that they can learn new things. So Skillshare is really a great place for you to elevate your learning to the next level. You can always click the links and get 2 months for free of Skillshare. That's plenty of time to watch my classes, and then you don't have to subscribe if you don't want to after that. But they can help you take it to the next level. So go ahead and check out the link in the description for the full course that this video comes from. Thanks for watching. We'll talk in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.